Welcome back to Museum Roadshow, everyone. My name is Amy Degerstrom, and we were talking about ghost towns or lost towns of Becker County. We already talked about a few great ones, and today we'll talk about a few more. The first of those is Westbury. I always laugh about the fact that we had a board member once who used to tell me all the time that he lived in East Westbury Heights. So Westbury was once a really thriving community on the Sioux Line Railroad, so going north of town, north on Highway 59. I was going to say 53, and 59 went up, and Westbury sat just to the east of the railroad tracks. There's still a sign there today. Westbury was settled about 1904, so it's a little bit of a later settlement in terms of communities. It included a lot of things, though. There was a depot there, the Thompson and Ide stores. There was a variety mercantile, 3 telephones that could be used to call Callaway, Detroit Lakes, and Audubon, so that was a pretty big deal, and a post office. There was also a Farmer's Creamery that was built in 1905. There was an elevator, stockyards, a livery barn, a dance hall, a yeoman's yacht lodge for band performances, a recreation and pool hall. A fellow named Rube Hoff sold candy and light lunches there, so you could get snacks while you were in Westbury. There was an implement store, an International Harvester tractor shop, a state bank in 1917, which, like many, went broke in the 1920s during the kind of Great Depression. There was a potato warehouse, a chapel, a park, and we have a wonderful image of Westbury that we've been looking at along with pictures that was done by a fellow who grew up in the area and shows the sort of layout of Westbury. Now, over time, as Highway 59 came through more officially, the route, and 59, for those of you that don't know, was the original route of the ox cart trail in Becker County, and so it was a natural route for the railroad and for major roads to come onto. As that wider highway came through, Westbury actually shifted sides. So originally it would have been right attached to the railroad tracks, and now, of course, Highway 59 runs between the railroad tracks and what would now be the village of Westbury. So partially, I think Westbury kind of died down because of the fact that it lost its immediate access to the railroad, and that again happened with a lot of towns around Becker County. Another town that I always like to include in lost towns is one that, again, still has a sign marker but doesn't have many things left, and that's Osage. We have a great kind of end to a shipping box that we'll show you here from Osage that talks about a shipping center or a store. And Osage was a lumber town, like many towns over in that part of Becker County, in that east central part of Becker County. There were lots of things there. McKinley's store, there was a grist mill, a dam for a sawmill. The Osage stage lines were here as well. Now, Osage, again, ran along the original ox cart trail, so the stage coaches would come through there and continue through Richwood and then up along the route of Highway 59. The stages would leave Osage for Detroit Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 6 a.m. Russell Hordman was the proprietor. It took them about 12 hours to get from Osage to Detroit, so it was quite a trek. Lots of stops along the way. There was also the Lakeview Hotel in Osage. DeWitt Clausen was the proprietor there, and he was a Civil War veteran. There was an Allen's Cash Store. In 1901, there was a big fire in Osage that consumed most of the town, and so then it had to rebuild after that, and never really quite got back to the bustling community that it had originally been in the 1870s when it was first settled. And then as the sawmill kind of died out in Frazee, and that industry died down in 1919, Osage, again, like many towns, sort of died out along with it. Another small community that doesn't exist at all anymore in Becker County was Linnell. Now, Linnell sat again in that same general vicinity of Becker County, close, not far from the Osage area. Mrs. Linnell, who was a widow from West Union, Iowa, came to Carsonville Township and settled in Section 4 with her sons, Charles, Earl, and Frank. They had a farm and they started a store, and she established a post office in her house, which was the first post office in Carsonville Township in 1883, and they operated that until 1912, so quite a long time. L.E. Linnell, who had a connection to that community, set up a trading post 1 mile east of Ponsford, so kind of that Ponsford, Osage, Wolf Lake area in Becker County. And the road crew connected Linnell to Detroit in 1882. So it was actually pretty booming by then. Mr. Linnell, who was again a relative of the widow from Iowa, was a politician, a realtor, a sheriff, a town clerk, a horseman, a breeder of horses, and a notary public, so kind of a Renaissance man. And all that's left now in Linnell is a historical marker where the school once sat, and we have a small map of the community that we've been looking at as well. And there's a few references in old newspapers, particularly the Becker County Blade. One last quick one this episode, and then we'll move on to our next one. Spruce Dell. Spruce Dell, for any of you who have been to Tamarack and gone on the history hike, know about Spruce Dell. It was a little community that sat right in the middle of that refuge, now again on Tamarack. There was a post office and general store there, and that moved the whole thing to Ponsford in 1900. So Spruce Dell was basically a stopping point for those who were moving through the area. The building is still there. There's a family buried there as well. So if you go on that history hike, you'll be able to see Spruce Dell. So that's it for this episode of Museum Roadshow, and we'll be back again next week for our final run of ghost towns or lost towns in Becker County.